Welcome back, ChangeMakers. As you can see, we've been a bit busy. We did not post a video last week because of that. So instead, here we are this week, getting started again. This week, we are going to be talking about Session 0. This is actually a 3-part topic, so there's going to be 3 videos about this. The first one is going to be about just the general questions that you should be asking during your first Session 0. And we're going to go into a bit about why you should have a Session 0 and what makes it so important. After that, next week's video is going to be about getting to know your players. We're going to be talking a little bit more about GNS theory and how that kind of ties in, and how specific questions can help you set goalposts later in your campaign, and why Session 0s are so important. In the last video, we are going to be talking about what Session 0 is famous for. We're going to be talking about lines and veils, setting boundaries, and knowing how to approach touchy topics and things that might be, and knowing when you've crossed the line. So let's get started. Let's talk all about Session 0. Session 0 is so important. It sets the groundwork for everything you might want to be able to do as a CM without taking up too much time. It's one session that you just get everybody in a room and you have a conversation with them so that everybody's on the same page. You know exactly what it is that people are expecting, and you can either match those expectations or turn them on your head. Without that, you're kind of playing blind, and that can get really sketchy. You don't necessarily know if your players are having fun or if they're just finding it tedious. You want to be able to hook them in to make sure that they can come back for a next session, and this just makes it considerably easier to do that. For now, let's dive into the questions. So before Session 0 is even started, you should make sure, as the CM, you should make sure that you have some idea of what you want to talk to them about. We have written a whole comprehensive list about what questions to ask and why we think it's important for you to ask those questions. Those questions are actually available on Facebook and Twitter. They're free to look at and all of that. We felt it was more important to have it available to use rather than keeping it just within our own rulebook, because it's important to any system that you play in. It matters. So we wanted those to be available now rather than when we publish. They're still a work in progress, but so far this is what we've got. Before you even start Session 0, you should know, are you running a module or is it your own story? This is a question about what kind of expectations do you have? What kind of setting are you planning to play? You should know these kind of questions so that you can dive a little deeper when you actually talk to your players about it. If it's your own story, you should know how to plan a few sessions in advance, just in case you find a min-maxer in your group or something like that, and you need to, or somebody manages to become overpowered somehow. You give them an item that ends up just going haywire or anything like that, and you know how to jump ahead really quickly. Specific to ChangeMakers, it's really important to know how many players you're going to be playing with. ChangeMakers can handle anybody from like 3 to 4 players all the way up to like 20 or 30 players. So it's important to know how many players you're playing with. How are you going to be getting each player to have their time in the spotlight? Does it matter if every player has their time in the spotlight, or are you going to be focusing on groups instead? Is it every player has one full character sheet that they're using, or is every player just a title on like a group character sheet? And these kind of things can change how you're playing and how you're splitting up groups and things like that. And what happens if somebody doesn't show up to a session or stuff like that? Those are questions you should at least have some idea about before you even get to the Session 0 table. So, Session 0s can be there for talking about how to make characters together, or to just talk about the topics before you've even started the campaign and kind of what kind of conversations you want to have. These upcoming questions are all social norm kind of questions. They're all about what you should be expecting as a group when you come to this table, what's okay, what's not okay, just at a really basic level. So, first time meetup, when you have your very first session 0, and you should be having multiple session 0s anytime you change themes or change settings, or start a new campaign, it should always have a new session 0 associated with it. But these questions should only be in the very first time. So for this very first session 0, it should be about when are you meeting, where are you meeting, how long are you meeting for, just setting up those expectations so they know ahead of time. It's how much table talk is allowed. We are in the middle of the coronavirus problem worldwide, and tabletop players are trying to find online games, meeting new people, all of that stuff. And they're finding that playing online games and having side table talk get out of hand becomes a really big issue. Not only are the players who are having those side conversations now up front and center and very loud, but if it gets out of hand, then it's suddenly you can't even have the normal story. It's just side conversations. And that's not very engaging. You're not really there to have fun as a group. You're there to have fun with like one other person. That being said, table talk is still important. Being able to have a side conversation can matter a lot to the story. It's the part of how some people have fun. So knowing what the balance is and how to stop table talk from getting too out of hand, it's good to be able to set up ahead of time. Things like Scout's Honor, and just making sure that everyone's quiet when they need to be, or just saying, hey, it's getting really rowdy, and you have that respect set up ahead of time, and knowing those kind of things can matter a lot. Finally, in first time meetup, it should be expected to know how much of the rulebook should players actually know right off the bat. Should they have a copy of whatever player handbook at the beginning of the game? Should they know like really, really basic? Should they know absolutely nothing and just kind of learn as you go? That's really on the CM's preference of how much work they want to do and how much they are okay with other people knowing maybe a little bit more than them, or being able to correct them, or anything like that. So those are first time meetup questions. After that is campaign specific questions. So these are starting to get to know your players. We're going to dive deeper into this in our next video, but for now we still need to talk about kind of getting into those setting questions, and kind of making sure you're on the same page with your players. Art's only really considered good or popular if it's understood by both sides. They can be saying different things, but you can relate to it in some way. Quentin Tarantino has a lot of movies out there that are usually a mix of a Western and a Kung Fu movie. And because people can understand the specifics of both of those genres, when he mixes them together and kind of plays with that space a bit, you can still see where he's going with it, and you can still understand and you can relate to a lot of that conversation. This is a similar situation. So the kind of questions you should be asking here are, what do players know about the story setting that you're planning to tell, and what do players want to do in this setting? This can help with character creation. This can help with just understanding what their roles are in this world that you've created. So for us, we were running an Oregon Trail story for playtesting this game, for playtesting ChangeMakers. One group really loved us. We had a whole day where it was just one after the other. They either weren't super into our game, but they weren't like against it, and the others would kind of make it into whatever they wanted it to be. And our in-house CM, Grady, was really great at kind of tying those together. Our second day, we were a bit tired. We had one group come in and immediately weren't completely into the concept of doing the Oregon Trail. They were worried about being colonialists. They were worried about what kind of stories they were going to get into. And one of the first things they jumped into was meeting Native Americans. This got so bad that one person left and the other one had a big argument with us. If we had even had a session 0 at all, just a quick, what do you know about the setting? What are you interested in? Any of that, we would have known right off the bat that they were not into being on the Oregon Trail and being those settlers and pioneers. They did not want to interact with Native Americans and have to think about what kind of conversations go into that. They didn't want to talk about gentrification. They did not want to talk about any of that racism or any of those issues that came up with Native Americans at that time period. or even today still. So it was important that we did that. It was really important that we did that ahead of time. As part of why we started working really hard on the Session Zero stuff was because we wanted to make sure situations like that didn't come up. We're playing a social game. It's important that people are in a safe space and that they feel like they can play comfortably. So I wanted to make sure you guys heard that anecdote just in case you maybe weren't super experienced in CMing, or maybe you just wanted another cautionary tale. But this way, it's just kind of why you should be doing these and what's important about it and why these are good questions and what kind of thought process go into this. Finally, for session and campaign specifics, and this is specific to ChangeMakers, it's really important to know to let players know what kind of scale they're playing at. Is this a person scale? Is this a nation scale? And what does that mean? What kind of goals should they be setting? What kind of conversations should they be thinking about? It's also, and more important to any system that you play, is what kind of play is this that you're doing? This isn't just, is this a linear branching story? This isn't just, is this a modular, or is this your own story? This is also things like, are you playing a sandbox game? Or are you doing a model UN game? How are players going to be interacting with the space? And how much should they be expected to set their own goals? Are you doing con play? Or is this more of a free form, kind of just enjoy space together and kind of go nuts with it? It changes how you approach the conversation. It changes what kind of stuff you're interested in, and it changes how open you should be with what information you're giving to the CM. Players tend to be a little bit reserved. It's a natural response. And all of that. Those are all the questions we're going to go over today. Next week, we're going to be going over more specifics about how to tell who your players are, and how to tell what it is, how to set up those goalposts so everybody can have a good time, where they can see that their good time is coming up soon. Through the Session Zero questions. This is the next set of why you should have a Session Zero. Make sure to like and subscribe to us so you can get updates on when those videos come up. You can also like us on Facebook or Twitter. Our Session Zero notes are all on there, are posted up on both of those sites. They're free, open source, all of that. You can just grab them and use them. They should be good to go. If they're not, or if you have any questions or want to hear another anecdote, you can always email us or subscribe to our newsletter. Just, again, email us that you want to join our newsletter, and we will add you really quick. And you can tell us all about that in the comments. If you have any anecdotes about how a Session Zero helped, or when a Session Zero would have been helpful, you can post those in the comments. I would love to see them. Just more cautionary tales so I can avoid them, or what have you. That is all we have for this week. We will see you next week. Goodbye.